Hi everyone, it's Sam, NFTstatistics, and this is your Proof Daily NFT Countdown. A lot to talk about today. Going to talk about this Vera Molnár drop, which just happened, or mint I should say, which just minted out and is currently trading up about 2x from the mint price. Also going to dive a little bit into the Solana ecosystem, look at this Christie's auction that finished yesterday. Let's dive right in, starting off with a quick market overview. Volumes were down a small bit. If you look at unique buyers, also down. They've been down every day for about 4 days now, and really kind of pushing towards the low end of the range for where they've been all year. Large cap index also down, had a lot of weakness in DGODs, down about 7%. I'll look at some charts about that in a second. Mid cap index down a small bit. Here's the DGODs chart. I think really since April 1st. So over the past few months since they came to ETH, they've kind of trended in this 8 to 10 ETH range. Fell a little bit below that here to about 7.5 on Blur, or 7.7 on Blur. What happened? I tried to dig around into what happened, and it turned out that there is a buyer who bought about 24 of them on leverage, very high APY loans. And that person just decided that they just didn't like having that much risk on, and they dumped 24 at once. Now, big dumps aren't that infrequent in this space, but what's happened is a lot of people tend to wait for Matcha Big Brother to dump, and once Matcha dumps, that's like a buy signal. And what was interesting is this person sold right after a Matcha Big Brother dump. So a lot of the people were kind of lining up, getting ready for a rally, got sold into, led to a little bit of a risk unwind. A lot of people are saying this is because season 3 is getting delayed. They're going to have new art, going to give us more dynamics with the dust token, things like that. I personally don't think that's new. I think when you see a trading paradigm change, like DGODs today went from 8.5 to 7.5, that's a pretty big move for DGODs. It's normally because someone's selling or something new happened. The delay has kind of been in the conversation for a long time. And I've also said this on Twitter, the NFT market is very forgiving of delays. As we saw with elementals, it's not very forgiving of mistakes. So I think Frank is better off delaying and getting it right, having something kind of that people have to look forward to after it, than he is just pushing this out the door to hit a deadline. So who knows? We'll see what happens there. I wanted to dig into Solana a little bit. If you look at this volume chart, this is 7-day, kind of the past 7-day volume. You can see it is really basically at the lows that we've been in certainly year to date. I mean, volumes have really gone down on Solana. But one of the other interesting dynamics is ever since May, TensorSwap, which people I think appropriately call the Blur of Solana, has had more market share than Magic Eden. Magic Eden is below 50% market share. Which is kind of an interesting thing. Again, TensorSwap is the Blur of Solana, and they tweeted, and you can see on this left side here, August 7th, save the date. I believe that's when the drop is coming. Here's a thread on the right side by Max BR's NFT, which really dives into the TensorSwap drop. I'd encourage people to check it out. I didn't have time to summarize it this morning, but he really goes into a lot of the details. I did think it was kind of interesting. I was on a Spaces with Frank this morning, and Frank said that TensorSwap has been in this professional trader game for a long time, even before Blur, but it was really when Blur got big that TensorSwap started to get big. And if you look at their site, it is such a replica of Blur. They use the word loyalty. You have kind of this whole bid and points. The UI looks very, very similar. And they're even replicating the boxes, which I would say in the scheme of things that Blur has done well, I wouldn't say boxes are one of the most interesting things, but they're even replicating that. You can see that in that tweet there. Apparently, it's already been decided who's going to get what airdrop, so you can't earn more points now. But check out that thread there. We'll throw it in the comments as well for you to see that. In terms of art projects, a whole lot of volume in art blocks over the past 24 hours, both in some of the biggest projects as well as some of the smaller ones. All the biggest projects had at least one trade. This Golf Socks palette, Cadenza, sold for 79 ETH, which pushed the floor a little bit higher. You had a Bold Squiggle, which sold for 24.9 ETH. Really nice sale there. There was a Ringer, which sold for 30 ETH, really kind of the low end of where Ringers have been selling. And then a Gazers, which unfortunately I believe was stolen, sold for 11 ETH. So hate to see that. Someone's wallet gets drained, and then the seller just takes whatever bid they can get, but that sold for 11 ETH. A couple others. I'm going to do 2 slides today because there was so much art. We had an Elevated Deconstructions for 10.1. You had a Memories of Chilin, and this isn't one of the palettes that I've always seen. It could be a good palette, but it kind of looks like a rabbit if you look at it from an angle. I don't know. I think that's kind of a cool one, but that sold for 6.9 ETH, which is certainly a premium to floor. Really nice Meridian at 6.5, and then a Harvest for 2.4, a little bit below where those have been trading. Second thing to talk about, the Vera Molnár drop that she did with Sothebys. Again, mint is probably the better word than drop. Here is from the Sothebys page. The illustrious computer art pioneer releases her first and only on-chain generative art project investigating 3 notorious letter forms that changed the conversation around digital art forever. And those three letters are NFT. I heard a interview, actually Eli from our team did an interview with Michael Bohanna where he said, I think NFT is a little bit cheesy. I don't think those are the letters we should build this around, but apparently Vera really wanted to do it. And as a generative artist herself, saw how much the NFT movement has totally transformed the generative art space. So we'll look at that art in a second. Just a little bit about Vera Molnár. She is a Hungarian-born artist who currently lives in France. 99, they say 98 to 99 years old is what it says on the Wikipedia page, but she was trained as a traditional artist in the 1940s, but created her first abstract geometrical art in 1946 and used a computer to create algorithmic drawings in 1968. That was before you could even see the screen with your computer. That wasn't until 1976. And of course, as someone doing something very new and using a computer to create art, artists accused her of dehumanizing art at the time. Kind of tale as old as time with that. And her work really favors very simple geometric elements. If you look at some of the work that she's done over the past few decades, here it is. Just, I think it's really kind of elegant use of shape, form, and a little bit of randomness in that work. About the drop, she partnered with Martin Grasser, and the two of them together created the NFT, which was dropped today. Here are some of the exploratory prototypes that they released before the drop or before the mint actually happened. So you can see kind of that N, the F, the T worked into the art that she's showing here. A little bit about this mint, though. There were 500 pieces. 20 of them are reserved for the artists, Sothebys and more, and those are not being minted right now. So you'll see 480 on the OpenSea page. Token 0 has been committed to a public collection. They will announce who gets that later. And it was a Dutch auction which started at 20 ETH, went down to 0.75 ETH. It really started to see the real buy pressure happen around 1 ETH. And that was a great buy because we're already seeing trades go at 2.2 ETH. So really big win for anybody who minted this. And the first 25 buyers get a signed artist book, but it's only for people who hodl. You got to hold or you're not going to get it. I think they're going to be dropping it in the fall, and they're only giving it to people who both minted it and still own that NFT. So the first 25, if they still hold that NFT, are going to get them. Each piece was curated by Vera Molnár. So it was not totally random, and minted on chain, I believe. I saw that in someone's comments that it was curated by Vera, and it's 7.5% royalties. Here are the pieces that actually minted. I think it's really cool stuff. Really kind of follows her work, but then also has those letters NFT in them. And this is from the Art Blocks page. You can see the cheapest there is about 2.6 ETH. So you really just love to see that. Really, really cool to see that. I think we're seeing a lot of the trades right now, again, in that 2.2 to 2.6 ETH range. Really kind of diverse looking stuff. So congrats to everyone involved there. Third, I wanted to talk about the Christie's auction, the results that happened over the past day. Were finally released. This was an auction that Christie's did with Gucci for 7 days. Ended up raising less than 100 ETH. So I think you had kind of mixed results. 7 or 8 of the pieces did not end up hitting their minimum bids. And when we talked about this on the show, I did say that these bids, that the minimum bids they put in were really punchy. 40 for a Claire Silver piece, 35 for a piece Claire did with another artist. Like, I think those were amazing works of art. The Claire piece was one of my favorites I've ever seen, but those were just high prices for this market relative to what we have seen. Let's look a little bit at what did sell. This Emily Shee piece sold for 8 ETH. Here's a Pinder Van Arman piece for about 6.5, and a Botto Project piece sold for 13.7. We talked about a Botto sale yesterday for 4 ETH. So this was a really nice sale. And again, not all pieces, of course, are created equal. I think this was a really special one that sold. Helena Serene, Neural Bricolage had a sale for 12 ETH. Here's one by Zach Lieberman for 8. And I think this one on the right is just one of the coolest pieces I've seen. I really, really just think it is pretty awesome from an artist named Mine Etaru. And sorry if I pronounced it wrong, which sold for 1.3 ETH, a little bit above the minimum bid. Here are some that did not go. And I thought it was interesting. You had 2 Fidenzas, and I think these are awesome Fidenzas. I really I saw them printed out at Christie's. They look fantastic, but also I think are pretty interesting ones. And the minimum for the middle one was 80, and on the right was 85. And neither of them sold or even hit those bids. Obviously, there's a fee on top that probably had to do with it. It's a smaller buyer base because of the KYC requirements. Maybe that contributed, but relative to a Fidenza floor, which is above 80 ETH right now, I think that these are like above floor NFTs. So didn't end up selling. And then you had a Lost Robbie that had never been minted before that Christie still owned, and that was 220 ETH minimum, I believe, and that also did not sell. So mixed bag. In this market, as someone who looks at one-of-one sales every day, who looks at generative art sales every day, I was not surprised that a few of these were not going to sell. They were just punchy prices for the market that we are in, but still a bunch of great sales. So congrats to everybody who did have sales there. And then lastly, let's talk about a few more notable sales. And sorry to be a little bit sales heavy on this show, but this is the news for today. A Spirit Azuki sold for 61 ETH. This happened 2 days ago. Didn't talk about it yesterday. Wanted to fill it in. And I think that this is interesting because spirits have kind of been the grails that have just held up through thick and thin. Obviously, with the Azuki floor going from 17 to 5 ETH, you're going to see weakness in the grails as well. If you look at the previous Spirit Azuki sales, though, even after the elementals drop, we've been seeing all the sales be above 100. Here's one at 110, 105, 111, and 130. I think this one is not as valuable of a spirit just in terms of the traits that it has, but still 61 is pretty low relative to what we've seen there. A couple one-of-one sales to talk about. This piece, Ambien by Andrew Mitchell, really cool piece, 3.3 ETH. Andrew Mitchell, we know anyone who knows Grant Yoon's work. Grant Yoon has done a generative project with Andrew Mitchell, but Andrew Mitchell has a lot of really cool sales on his own. Here are some of the sales he's had in that 2 to 5 ETH range. Similar look and feel to this. A little bit about Andrew. He's a generative artist based in Virginia, the co-founder of Mitchell and Yoon Studios, the studio behind Primera with Grant Yoon. And since graduating from Virginia with a bachelor's in computer science, he's sold out 8 generative art collections. He's been featured at Times Square and at Art Basel Miami. So cool to see that. Congrats to Andrew on that sale. And then one other piece I wanted to talk about is this piece called Over the Lines by Andrea Crespi, which sold for 2.5 ETH. Another one, you got to see the animation. It really brings this to life with the apple spinning and, kind of those lines in the background that create that illusion. A lot of Andrea Crespi sales involve those lines that create that illusion. He's had sales from 1 to 2.3 ETH kind of across the board. So this does look like it's at the very high end of the range or even an all-time high for him. And I think it is kind of a unique one because I really like that addition of color that it has in it. A little bit about the artist, an Italian physical and crypto artist whose work develops in the continuous investigation of different media topics, including optical illusion, social transformation, and digital revolution. With his work, he materializes contemporary cultural changes. Cool stuff. Congrats to Andrea on that sale. That is all from me today. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, give us a like below. Subscribe to the Telegram channel. We got the link below. Best way to hear about the channel. And then, subscribe. Give us comments. Tell us what you think. All the stuff I normally say. Do it again. We appreciate it. We'll be back tomorrow. Talk to you soon.